You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Hristodoulou.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Hristodoulou, and today I'm going over my Week 4 injury report with you guys. All the players that you need to be taking a look at, or guys that have just been knocked out of playing within the last, I want to say 10 minutes or so. Jakobi Meyers, one of the guys we'll be talking about here, labeled as out for the Patriots this Sunday. A lot to get into, a lot to talk about. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe button, and most importantly, if you have not seen it already, my giveaway video is up for some show t-shirts. They look like this one that I am wearing or that I have in my hands right here. Super soft, super comfortable. You can wear them anywhere you're just trying to casually hang out and enjoy. Anyone that I've given them to have all said the same thing. They're fantastic shirts. Would love to get one into your hands. You got to make sure you're subscribed. And if you watch the video, I explain what you got to do to enter into the giveaway. So make sure you check that out as well at the end of this video. Now, diving into the Week 4 injury report for you fantasy football people. We'll start with the late window, the 4 o'clock and onward people, the guys that are playing from then until, Sunday night football and into Monday night football. We'll start off with the Cardinals, who are dealing with a litany of injuries at the wide receiver spot right now. Marquise Brown dealing with a foot injury. He's questionable. Rondale Moore dealing with a hamstring injury. He is questionable. AJ Green is out, and they're obviously already down DeAndre Hopkins as well because he's still dealing with a suspension. If you're someone who's hanging on to any of these guys, I would say right now, if I had to guess, just based off of what we were looking at in terms of practice participation here, Marquise Brown, he feels like he might be leaning towards not playing just because he did not participate Wednesday and Thursday, and he was only limited to some small amount of time during practice on Friday. I would be a little bit more worried about him. It sounds like Rondale Moore has a shot. He was limited all week, but he does have a shot to play. But these both are guys that we're probably not going to find out until closer to that 4 o'clock or some odd time, whatever it is exactly that they're starting at, but beyond a little bit before that 4 o'clock window. So Greg Dortch, Andy Isabella, guys that you might want to think about scooping up if they are available on the waiver wire for you. Tight end Zach Ertz, I don't know how popular he might be in your league or if he's somebody who's sitting out there right now in terms of how large or small your league may be. If he's sitting on the sidelines, maybe scoop him up if he's available. But a lot of wide receiver questions for the Cardinals right now, and I would definitely consider looking for some guys to potentially plug in because right now, not looking the healthiest in terms of wide receiver groups around the NFL. For the Panthers, wide receiver Laviska Shenault, who had a pretty solid game last week, and then, of course, running back Christian McCaffrey, who has been on the injury report for at least the last 3 years now in some capacity and in some shape of form. Laviska Shenault, we'll see. He played really well despite coming out of that game with an injury. I feel like he might be able to go, but that's another one that, again, game time guy. Take a look, just double check, make sure he's there. Christian McCaffrey, it sounds like people aren't as concerned with his issue, but again, another thing to keep in mind, if Chuba Hubbard's sitting out there, he'll get the bulk of the snaps at running back if Christian McCaffrey can't go. And if Laviska Shenault's not able to play, a guy like Rashard Higgins might see a few more extra snaps. He might be somebody worth just kind of taking a look at and see if he's available in your league. Not somebody I would want to live and die by, though. If Rashard Higgins is one of your guys, it's a flex option at best. Patriots, Jakobi Meyers, as I alluded to, he is out for this week, just literally downgraded, I want to say roughly 10-15 minutes ago, right before I started recording this video. Mac Jones as well, if you're somebody who has him on your team. Obviously, you've been following that high ankle injury. I know he was kind of hinting at potentially playing this week. He is out as well, not going to be in. So Patriots missing their starting quarterback and one of their top-end wide receivers. I would probably stay away from any receivers right now. If you're somebody that has, I know Devontae Parker just had a pretty strong week last week, but Kendrick Bourne is still in the doghouse, and with Brian Hoyer throwing the football, I can't imagine a ton of production, whether it's the wide receivers or the tight ends coming out of the New England offense. It just does not feel like going against the Packers defense that they're poised to really put up anything too crazy for you. Whoever you would consider like the number one guy might see the most targets and the most production, but outside of that, I don't really expect a lot coming from the Patriots offense this week against a Packers defense that's been pretty good so far. Raiders are going to be missing out on Hunter Renfrow. He is out with a concussion. I would definitely consider guys like Keelan Cole and Mac Hollins if they're available. Keelan Cole was definitely seeing a handful of targets. Mac Hollins had a really good game last week, and I would definitely consider scooping him up if he's available. I don't necessarily know how popular they are, but those are definitely two guys if they're sitting out there because of the fact that Hunter Renfrow is out and Darren Waller has not necessarily seen, I feel like, as many targets and has not been as productive as he has been in years past. And with this weird feeling of Devontae Adams, in some instances, not getting as many targets as I would expect, it feels like they're trying to spread the ball around a little bit more with the Las Vegas Raiders. So I would definitely consider one of those two guys. Since Hunter Renfrow is going to be out, there's got to be some more targets to be eaten up by somebody else. And Keelan Cole and Matt Collins, definitely two of those guys that could be seeing those looks. The Chiefs, wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He's dealing with an abdominal issue right now. He's listed as questionable for the game. He was limited Wednesday and Friday and sandwiched in between and did not participate on Thursday. Kicker Harrison Butker was literally just labeled out and downgraded, I want to say an hour or two ago. So the Chiefs have brought in, I don't even remember the guy's name if I'm honest with you. I would look for whoever their kicker is though, because the Chiefs offense, solid grouping, good at scoring points. It'll give their kicker an opportunity to get into field goal range to kick those PATs. So whoever their backup kicker is for this game, I would definitely consider scooping him up if Harrison Butker was your guy, or maybe go for somebody else who you feel might be a little bit more of a sure thing. But I think the opportunity and upside that the Chiefs offense brings gives you a good opportunity to scoop up whoever it is, the guy that they're bringing in for their backup kicking spot, and have him be your guy. For the Buccaneers, talk about just a litany of injuries that just don't seem to go away. Julio Jones still dealing with a knee issue. Chris Godwin, he's dealing with a hamstring issue. Russell Gage, he's also dealing with a hamstring issue. And these guys just can't seem to really get healthy right now. Julio Jones was limited Wednesday and Thursday. He didn't participate in practice on Friday, whereas Chris Godwin, he had Wednesday and Friday as a limited participant, and then he did not participate on Thursday. All of these guys are going to be probably game time decisions. Russell Gage, from what it sounds like, is probably the most sure bet of the three, big three guys over there right now. Obviously, Mike Evans is coming back, but in terms of just who to start and who, I would try to stay away from the Buccaneers offense anyways. They have not really been lighting it up in terms of numbers. The offense has not put up a large amount of points. They're not getting into the end zone too often. So I would, if you're looking at starting any of these three guys here, I would maybe even just stay away from them, because if they do end up playing and they're not really healthy, that offense really hasn't been moving a ton so far this season. So I would not let your team live or die based off of how healthy this Buccaneers wide receiver group is. I would definitely look to starting any of the other guys you might have on your bench, or if there's maybe a stray guy here or there that you think could be poised to have a good game and a good matchup, look elsewhere. I just don't like the Bucs wide receiver group right now because they're so unhealthy and the offense really hasn't been moving anyways. Brady has not looked quite as good, sharp, I guess you could say. I don't want to say good, but sharp as he has been in years past. The offensive line's just suffering, and I would just stay away from the Buccaneers offense right now. And I'm sure that by me saying that, they're going to have a monster week this week, but based off what we've seen so far, not super high on the Buccaneers. But those are all the late start guys, those people that you need to really think about, because all of them are starting after that 1 o'clock window where the bulk majority of games are. Do not forget to double check going into tonight and into tomorrow morning early, because there is a game at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. The Vikings and the Saints are going at it in London, and the Vikings really have nothing to worry about on the offensive side of the ball, but the Saints, man, Jameis Winston is doubtful. I do not expect him to play. He's dealing with a back, ankle, and hip injury now. He just has all the things going on with him. Alvin Kamara is still dealing with that rib issue that he's had for the last couple of weeks. He did play last week, so I don't see why he wouldn't play this week. He was a limited participant, and it feels almost like that was more along the lines of we were just trying to keep him from taking too many hits and bumps and things like that throughout practice. So I do think that Alvin Kamara is going to play, but definitely something you want to keep an eye on. Get up early at 8 a.m. Eastern time. So what is that? You have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning if you're on West Coast. Or no, not 5 o'clock. It's an hour and a half before the game. Sorry about that. No, you're looking at 7:30. You need to be up by 7:30 in the morning if you are going to be playing anybody that's on the Saints roster. Michael Thomas, he's out, so don't forget to pull him out if you have him on your team. Jarvis Landry, he's dealing with a questionable playing time, ankle injury. He is right now looking at, he had limited practice on Thursday and Friday, didn't participate earlier in the week on Wednesday. Chris Olave and Marquez Callaway, probably going to see a decent amount of snaps here, just because of the fact that Michael Thomas is out. Alvin Kamara is potentially going to see some limited action if his injury is still bothering him enough to be on the injury report. Jarvis Landry, if he doesn't end up going, expect to see those two guys see a decent amount of targets go their way. Both of them very talented. Marquez Callaway, I think, is a little bit more underrated than some people realize. Solid dude, so if he's sitting out there, scoop him up. I'm assuming Chris Olave is probably already spoken for in your leagues, but if by some chance he's hanging out there, maybe try to grab him if you can. But Marquez Callaway seems like a flyer, a guy that you might find in some leagues. Scoop him up if he's available. Just kind of stash him away. See if you have someone that you can drop and bring him in. He might be the guy that he could be good for a random game of 5 catches, 100 and some odd yards, and a score, especially with how just hurt the skill positions are over in New Orleans. Now, for the rest of the other guys, the 1 p.m. start window, Falcons, running back Cordero Patterson, he's dealing with a knee issue. He did not participate Wednesday and Thursday and then was limited on Friday. I have a feeling he might not be playing just because of the lack of practice time he's had this week. That's definitely one keep a close eye on. 11:30 is that time where we'll start seeing all those players come out, the injury reports and what have you. Check on Cordero Patterson. I feel like he's probably trending towards not playing just because he has not really made too much of an appearance this week in practice. Now, this one, I typically focus on the offensive side, but with just the amount of injuries right now that they're dealing with on the defense, I wanted to bring up the Browns here. Myles Garrett, he's going to be out with the injuries that he sustained because of the car accident he was in earlier in the week. Defensive end Jadeveon Clowney, he's dealing with an ankle injury. He is questionable. And then they already have lost Anthony Walker and Greedy Williams. There is just way too many injuries on this team right now on the defensive side of the ball for me to really believe in them. If you're somebody who's been running Browns defense, I would maybe try to stay away from them at least this week, or at least until Myles Garrett gets back in the fold. He is obviously one of the elite pass rushers in the league, and being down him and the potential of being down Jadeveon Clowney as well, whether he ends up playing or not, is just going to deplete the pass rush. So I would maybe consider looking in another direction for a defense. I don't know who's in your league that's available, but find the best performing one that you can, or if you have one stashed away on your bench, find somebody else, because I just don't feel like the Browns defense is poised to have an excellent game this week, just with the amount of injuries that they've been dealing with, and adding on top of that, Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett, if they're both out, you're going to need some serious Herculean type of efforts from other guys to make up for that production loss right there. For the Cowboys, Dalton Schultz, the tight end, with a knee injury, he's questionable. He was limited Wednesday through Friday in practice. This is one of those that feels like a game time, but thankfully 1 o'clock window, just double check on him, see what's going on. The other guy that I want to mention here, because I mentioned him last week, he didn't end up playing, but it sounds like there's a strong possibility maybe he makes his debut this week. Wide receiver Michael Gallup. He's still working his way back from that knee injury he was dealing with last week. And now, having fully participated Wednesday through Friday, there is a potential that we might be seeing a season debut from him, and it would come at an excellent time for the Cowboys, who have rattled off a couple of big wins, and now bringing in a guy like him to add a little more stability to the wide receiver corps alongside CeeDee Lamb would be a huge help for the Dallas Cowboys in this game. Just keep an eye on it. See what happens. I don't think anything has been, at least from what I've seen and looked around, nothing has been made clear on whether he's playing or not. Keep an eye out. 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. That's when those injury reports drop. See if he's playing. If you have him stashed away and you thought, this is a guy that I might have prior to the season, might be a good time to consider playing him. And if you do, I'm thinking like flex spot, wide receiver 3 at best, because if he does play, I don't expect him to see a ton of targets and opportunity, but definitely a guy who in the past has shown he can be a playmaker. For the Lions, another team dealing with a lot of injuries here. Wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's out. Ankle injury took him out for the week. Running back DeAndre Swift, sounds like he's going to be out for a while. His shoulder injury has given him problems. It looks like he might be out at least past their bye week. I was reading something about Dan Campbell saying that that's a possibility, that they shut him down for a little bit just to give him time to recover and then come back after the bye. So keep an eye on DeAndre Swift, because I think he might be missing a few games here. Wide receiver Josh Reynolds and DJ Chark are the other two guys. This wide receiver group in Detroit, not really looking too hot right now. I would maybe try to stay away from the Lions right now, just because of the amount of questions and injuries that these guys could be dealing with. Josh Reynolds has an ankle injury. He did not participate on Wednesday and then was limited Thursday and Friday. DJ Chark, also an ankle injury, was limited Wednesday and Friday. Sandwiched in between that was a non-participation on Thursday. These are guys that are probably going to be game time decisions. If the injuries are serious enough, they could hamper their production. with how good this Lions offense has been so far this season, it's kind of disappointing to see literally their top 3 like wide receivers in terms of production so far, and then your running back and DeAndre Swift also going down in this game. It would be awful to see none of these guys play, but I don't really know how good of an opportunity Josh Reynolds and DJ Chark really have, considering that they've missed some practice and they were limited in the practices they did get into. But just keep an eye on those. It's not looking good for the Lions. The Bears. This is an exciting one here. Velus Jones Jr., who's been dealing with a hamstring injury. He's been questionable the last few weeks. He practiced all week, and it sounds like he could be trending towards his NFL debut. So if you're somebody who had him stashed away, or if maybe he just happens to be sitting within the waiver wire somewhere or in free agency and you can scoop him up, grab him. Who knows how good he could end up being? It'll be a good opportunity for him to make a difference for this offense, who could really use a little more infusion of talent at the wide receiver spot. And then running back David Montgomery is, of course, going to be out for this game. He's dealing with an ankle and knee issue. So, of course, Khalil Herbert's a guy you could look at, and a few other guys that they have for running backs over there. Now, diving into the Giants, talk about a wide receiver core that is depleted right now. Sterling Shepard goes down with the ACL injury, non-contact last week. He's on the IR. He's done for the year. Kadarius Toney, he's dealing with a hamstring injury. He is out for this game. Wan'Dale Robinson with a knee issue. He is also out in this game. I would look at guys, if you're trying to pick somebody up from the Giants and hope that maybe they eat up some of the targets, Richie James has been fairly effective in the limited opportunities he's seen. You obviously have David Sills. You have Darius Slayton, who at some point was looking like a serious breakout candidate, but didn't quite end up getting to that full potential being reached. And then I don't know if anyone's still hanging on to Kenny Golladay at this point. I mean, the guy has 2 catches in the first, 3 weeks? I don't know what's going on with that, but there is the opportunity that since so many guys are going to be missing the game this week, maybe he comes to life. Maybe he starts putting up some numbers. I don't know if he's out there for you, if anyone who drafted him in your league just finally gave up after the 3rd week and let him go to put somebody else on their roster. Maybe this is the week. There's so many guys out, it's almost like he has to be productive at this point, but we'll see. Jaguars, wide receiver Zay Jones dealing with an ankle issue. He did not participate Wednesday and Thursday, and he was limited on Friday. With that in mind, feeling like a guy who's trending towards potentially not playing, but a questionable guy at 1 p.m. We'll find out at 11:30. For the Eagles, running back Boston Scott, he is out. Rib injury. Miles Sanders, he was also listed on there, but it sounds like he's going to play, so I wouldn't worry too much about him. But Boston Scott is out. If you have him on your roster, make sure you are not putting him in for week number 4 here. The Bills, 2 important skill players for them. Wide receiver Gabe Davis, and then, of course, tight end Dawson Knox. Gabe Davis is dealing with an ankle injury. He came back last week. Didn't really light the world on fire. He was limited Wednesday and Friday. He didn't participate on Thursday. I don't know if that's just because the injury was giving him a problem during week 3, and they wanted to see if maybe giving him some more rest during the week would allow him to come back a little bit stronger for this week 4 matchup. But that is definitely something to keep an eye on if Gabe Davis is one of your guys. And then tight end Dawson Knox, dealing with a back issue. He was limited all week long. This one feels like more of a game time decision than anything else just because he was limited all week, but another guy to keep an eye on. And then finally, to wrap this whole thing up, we're looking at the Chargers. And boy, another team that is just dealing with injuries in all the wrong places on offense. Justin Herbert, dealing with the rib issue. He was limited Wednesday and Thursday and then didn't end up participating in practice on Friday. I don't necessarily know if that was just a rest thing to try to get him ready for this game or what, but that rib issue is definitely affecting his play to some extent here, so that is something to keep an eye on. Wide receiver Jalen Guyton obviously going to the IR this week. That is a tough loss. It's going to limit the production of this offense altogether. He was a speedster guy, not somebody who was making 5 to 7 catches a game, but he was a kind of blow the top off the defense. When everyone talks about the Justin Herbert throw last year, 65-yard bomb, it was to Jalen Guyton. He had that type of speed, so that is a little bit of a loss for the Chargers offense here. Wide receiver Keenan Allen, he has been sat and he's not playing this game. He's out as well, dealing with his hamstring injury still. And then tight end Donald Parham Jr., hamstring issue as well. He's limited as questionable or listed as questionable, limited Wednesday through Friday in practice. I would look at guys from the Chargers like DeAndre Carter and Josh Palmer to see their roles increase in this game. Josh Palmer is a guy that for what it's worth, has had some games here and there and has flashed at moments in time. So definitely someone that I would take a peek, see what's going on with him. Is he available? Is he not? Maybe scoop him up if you have Keenan Allen on your roster, if you maybe had Jalen Guyton as one of your, like, you know, last of wide receiver guys. Maybe you swap Jalen Guyton out for Josh Palmer, something like that. But Josh Palmer's a guy who has had some big games in the past. Maybe look at him. And then again, DeAndre Carter's another guy as well. He's had some solid production this season as well. Might be someone who would get some more looks. But those are all the guys you need to be keeping an eye out. Check your rosters. Make sure you're not starting somebody who's out this week or somebody who could potentially be out this week. Remember, an hour and a half before scheduled game time. For the 4 o'clock window, just check at 2:30. If you're looking at 1 o'clock windows, check at 11:30. If it's Sunday Night Football, make sure you're checking by, like, I think the game starts at 8:20. Make sure you're checking by 6:30. And if it's that 9:30 in the morning Eastern time game in London, get yourself up at like 8 o'clock Eastern time, or if you're on the other side of 5 a.m. or something like that, if you're on the West Coast, get up and check your roster. Do not forget to pull somebody from the Saints if any of those guys are missing some game time. But that's it for me. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good one.